What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing our official review of MLB The Show 22. Before we get into it today, I want to make sure that you guys understand that while I go into this review, I was provided a copy of this game by Sony. I was given a promotional code to download this game for free. I had planned to purchase the game no matter what anyway. However, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into my honest review of the game this year, and I have taken the time to prepare a more balanced layout for this review so that I feel like I can give it a fair shake. We're going to grade this based on multiple categories. We're going to grade this based on gameplay, graphics, gameplay presentation, user interface and menu presentation, the roster and save files, the quality and quantity of the content within the game, and within that category we will talk about the various major modes such as franchise mode, Diamond Dynasty, Road to the Show, and March to October, and then we will inevitably give it an overall grade and make a determination of whether this game is worth it for you guys to purchase and what dollar value this game is actually worth. So first and foremost, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay perspective here of MLB The Show 22. In my opinion, this is the most true to real life MLB experience, or most true to real life sports game that is out there on the market. Nothing has changed in that regard in terms of MLB The Show. In fact, they've made some improvements to the game here that are really nice improvements to make the game smoother and give you an overall more balanced and more entertaining experience. It's an enjoyable gameplay experience all around, and the only problems that I really have with the gameplay is that there is still no realistic challenge system within the game. That is a must, and I've talked about that within my reviews in recent years. They really need to fix it so that there's a proper challenge system. That's a real negative whenever you get into those situations within a game. And then the other thing to talk about is that there's still some minor issues with checked swings and things like that. They do seem to be a bit more balanced in comparison to last year, but some of those things don't quite work as well as you might like them to. So the gameplay aspect of this game is going to get a 93 grade. Next up, we're going to talk about the graphics of this game. The graphics of this game are fantastic. I really struggle to find any areas where the graphics can be truly improved outside of a couple of minor things. One of those minor items would be the hair within the game. I really do feel like a lot of games right now are struggling to get hair right, and the physics of the hair, the look of the hair, and MLB is not unique in this problem. So I definitely wanted to point that out there, and there are a couple of other minor areas where graphics could be improved upon, but what else can we expect from a game on next gen than what we're seeing here on the screen? The graphics are really very good, and so the graphics for this game are going to get a 94. Next up, we're going to talk about the gameplay presentation, which you guys are getting a taste of on the screen behind me. I really enjoy the updated gameplay presentation. They've done a couple of things different here. They've modified the way that things are presented. They now have a win percentage meter. If you actually look down there in the bottom corner next to the two teams, and before you see the 0/0 for the score, there's a meter that shifts up and down depending on your win percentage for each team as things happen within the game, which is really nice. And there's other things that they've updated with the presentation as well. The presentation of this game is very solid. It really reminds me of a baseball experience while keeping it entertaining and visually appealing. The updated announcers as well and the appearance of the game are refreshing, to be honest with you. The only really minor thing that I would like to add here is that I really wish they would have just left the old announced team in the game, and I know that that's a lot to ask, probably too much to ask. You have to pay extra people, but I really wish that they would have just brought in the new announced team, left the old announced team in the game, so you have two options. It would be more realistic and more entertaining if from one game to another you have different announced teams. That would keep things refreshing, and every so many years that would honestly keep you from having this outcry from the community of people complaining, we need new announcers. These announcers are saying the same things that they've been saying for years. However, with that being said, the gameplay presentation is going to get the strongest grade out of any category within this game. Within my review, it's going to get a 96 grade. Next up, we're going to talk about the user interface and menu presentation. You'll get to see a little bit of that later on in the video, but really what I want to say here is that it's easy to get where you need to go with the menu system and user interface within this game. You don't get lost. It has a sleek design, and the menu system overall is user-friendly. Now, one thing that I'd like to say is that the menu system could be a bit nicer looking. I really feel like going from the last game to this game, there was not too much of a change. They did change it a bit. They could have made better improvements to the menu system, but they gave us changes in more important areas of the game, so I'm not going to complain too much because I also gave the user interface and menu presentation a good grade in the last review. I will just say that it was kind of overlooked, I would say, is more than likely the best way to put it, and so it's going to get an 87 grade, which is a solid grade, but it could be better for the user interface and menu presentation. The next to last category that we're going to talk about here is rosters and save files, and this is an interesting category. We also graded this game on this category last year. The opening day roster does include many of the MLB's prospects within each MLB team's system, which is a nice step in the right direction. You need to have those things on the opening day roster because most people are going to come out here and want to play a franchise mode, and they're going to want to have access to the actual prospects and not randomly generated prospects. The only problem here is that when you do open up a franchise, you still end up with a lot of random high potential players in free agency that are like prospects, 70s, 60s that are like 20 years old with a potential. And so that does kind of unbalance things and make things a little bit unrealistic and something that you have to correct on your own if you do want to pay attention to that. So that is an unfortunate detractor from it. The overall roster, however, is somewhat poorly executed. So as I go to the roster here, you'll get a quick look at the menu system. I'm going to go up into the top right corner and roster control edit player. Like I said, it's very easy to find everything, but what I want to talk about mainly here is that the roster is relatively poorly executed. Whenever we take a look at the Pittsburgh Pirates, for example, who everybody knows is a team that has been trading away top talent for top-end prospects for a long time, high-end prospects, more than 50% of the Pirates roster has D potential or lower, which is pretty bad whenever you consider that they are one of the better farm systems, one of the stronger farm systems within all of the major leagues. It's a bit odd, and I did want to, really include this, and I'm going to actually make a separate video on this topic so that I can get all of my feelings out there on this, but it's just odd. Most of the prospects in the game should have a base potential of 70 or above, which would be C potential, and essentially what that's saying is that they have a base level of competency that they might eventually be able to help out a major league team at some point in their career, which I don't think is asking too much for most prospects within the game. To have anything lower than that 70 C potential is basically saying that that prospect has no hope of ever making an MLB team at any point in their career, which is odd to me that you could ever say that a 22-year-old player has no potential to ever make an MLB team. It just doesn't make sense to me. I could pick out any prospect on any team. You could pick out any prospect on any MLB team and bring them to me, and I could tell you, yeah, they're at minimum going to probably be a platoon player or a rotational player, or they're going to come up and contribute at some point in their career to an MLB team. So to avoid rambling on that topic, the roster and save files for this game are going to get an 82, and we're really kind of striking a balance there between the improved ability to actually have real-life players within the game, but the poor execution of those players' ratings and developments within the roster. And then the final category that we absolutely have to talk about here, which is really honestly the meat and potatoes of everything, is the quality and quantity of content. I'm making this a standard across all of my game reviews now, talking about the quality and quantity of content, because I feel like this is the best category to gauge what a game really has to offer. In this category, I want to specifically talk about franchise mode a little bit, Diamond Dynasty, Road to the Show, and March to October. And there are a couple of minor points that I want to address on all of these. First, I want to talk about Diamond Dynasty. I love the fact that Diamond Dynasty within this game is one of the fantasy game modes, ultimate team game modes where you can put a team together that you don't have to spend money on. I actually have a pretty crazy Diamond Dynasty team right now, and I didn't spend any money. And I know that I got some stubs for having the early access part of the game, but nonetheless, you don't have to spend any money. Last year, I got the regular version of the game, if I'm not mistaken. I barely had any stubs, and I still got a pretty crazy and fun and enjoyable Diamond Dynasty team without really having to put in a ton of effort and without having to put any money into the game. So I really like the fact that it is an enjoyable game that you can balance out without having to spend any money, and it doesn't encourage kids to gamble. That's one of my biggest things, is that Ultimate Team within EA games and other similar modes just encourage gambling, and I am not for that, and I can't promote that within my channel. So I'm going to give each of these game modes a specific grade. Diamond Dynasty gets an 85 grade from me because it is still kind of taking away time from the game modes that I care about within the game. It's also not perfect. You know, I wish that there were some things that you could do better. I wish there was more single player content within Diamond Dynasty, but that's a personal preference for me. I'm a single player type of person. So it does get that 85 grade. Next up is Road to the Show. Road to the Show is always a staple of MLB The Show. This is a genuinely fun game mode. Nothing has changed here. One of the things that they did improve, however, is that they took out the dependency on other modes, or at least they reduced dependency on other modes. So last year, you really had to like play Diamond Dynasty to get everything you wanted for Road to the Show and be successful and really boost your player in Road to the Show. As far as I know, and as far as I have seen, you really don't have that dependency on other game modes that you have had in the past. So that is an improvement and a step in the right direction. But this mode is always solid, and like I said, nothing has changed with that fact that this is going to be a very solid and very enjoyable game mode, and therefore it's going to get a 90 grade from me. There are some depth improvements that they could do here, but it is still a very fun and enjoyable game mode. Next up, March to October. They made one of their biggest changes to the game this year by making March to October a multi-year game mode. They also added some additional improvements to it to make the appearance of it better, to make the experience better, and this is a game mode that they've been pushing for a while. Now, I'm not personally a March to October type of person. I'm a franchise type of person. I don't love the March to October experience, though it is going to be more likely to draw my attention this year with the multi-year aspect to it, because not every team is a win now team. You talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I mentioned earlier. They're not a win now team. Going into March to October with the Pittsburgh Pirates is kind of nuts, and you have to play it on a lower difficulty to really get anything done with that team unless you're very skilled at the game. So they did make genuine improvements here to March to October, and I think that they're going in a direction of making March to October a staple of their game. And so I'm going to give it an 88 grade. It's not the most appealing thing. I wish that they could have gone even further, made it more in-depth, but nonetheless they are taking steps in the right direction, so it gets a solid grade of an 88. And then we're going to talk about franchise mode. This one's going to get the lowest grade out of anything, but not because they haven't made improvements. They've made genuine improvements here to franchise mode in this year's game. They made some nice improvements with the trade metric, which is going to value players differently, and then trade logic changes on top of that, and some other minor changes to franchise mode as a whole. So they did make some nice changes, which is actually bumping this grade up higher than I would normally give it. However, they don't have connected franchise. It's the sole thing that everybody wants within the game. They want to be able to play a franchise with their friends. It's been in the show in past years. They took it out of the game. You can't get away with not having that in the game anymore. It's going to give it a massive negative to franchise mode, unfortunately, and to the game rating as a whole. You know, you could take this factor out of the review, but nonetheless, the game is still going to get a pretty good grade from me. But franchise mode is going to get a 75 grade, which is a little bit high because of some of the nice improvements that they've made. I'm actually having fun with franchise mode this year. But nonetheless, guys, if you're watching this review, get us connected franchise mode. That's all I care about for next year's game. If you don't give me connected franchise mode, then it's going to hit the review even harder. And it just is what it is, because that's what I want to play. Whenever I play Madden, I play connected franchise mode. Whenever I play other games, I want to play a connected mode with my friends in franchise mode. And unfortunately, MLB The Show doesn't really offer a whole lot of gameplay experience with your friends like most people would want to see. So that addresses the quality aspect of this portion, but I think it also addresses the quantity aspect. There's a lot of very in-depth game modes for you to play there that'll keep you playing for a long time. So the quality and quantity of this game is going to get an 86 grade. It's a very solid grade. It's pretty much only brought down by some of those negatives with not having connected franchise and stuff like that. It's going to get an 86 overall grade for that category. And ultimately, that brings me to the overall grade of this game. So what does it get? Averaging out all of those grades, this game is actually going to get an 89 overall grade. It was actually very close between being an 89 and being a 90, so keep that in mind. It's got that B+ to A- type of a range. It's a very good game. It's one of the best sports games out there on the market. Nothing has changed about that. They've made solid improvements to the game, but they do lack in certain areas, and they have failed to address the connected franchise issue, which is all really anybody wants out of this game for future years. So it's a very nice game. On next-gen consoles, it looks beautiful. It's a very fun gameplay experience. They need to add in a challenge system. They need to add in connected franchise, and they need to improve some minor things with gameplay and graphics and things like that, but that will come in future years. Some of those major changes do need to be made, but nonetheless, this game is certainly worth your money. I do put this at around the opening day price tag. Honestly, you know, opening day price tag for a base game now is what, $69.99. I'd put this more at the $60 range in terms of the game, because it is very similar to last year's game. To be honest with you, if you want to save the money, you could probably play last year's game and get a good roster from that game and still have a very similar experience. Nonetheless, you are going to have an enjoyable experience if you do pick up MLB The Show 22. And like I said, I was provided a copy of this game, so keep that in mind as you consider my opinions on the game. Nonetheless, if you did enjoy this video or found this information useful in some way, leave a like down below, comment, and subscribe if you are new around here. Please hit that subscribe button. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.